All right, Dave, we've been gaming for a while. We're starting a new game, and I really want to, play something different.
Well, I mean, the Eberron book came out not too long ago. What about Warforged?
Eberron is cool and all, don't get me wrong, but it's been around since 3rd edition. Played a Warforged, really looking to play something new.
Well, Ted, forget about Warforged. How about being dead?
Dead? How can I adventure if I'm dead?
Well, Ted, let's look into that in Explorer's Guide to Wildemount for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. Welcome to Nerdarchy, for nerds, by nerds. I'm Nerdarchist Dave, and as usual, I'm hanging out with this nerd.
Nerdarchist Ted.
Do you want to see more D&D videos? You might want to explore that subscribe button.
You got to do more than subscribe. You attune to that notification bell. You'll get our videos delivered right to you.
All right, so we're going to be talking about Explorer's Guide to Wildemount. I am going to be pulling it up on my phone so I can look at it on D&D Beyond.
I got the trusty book that just released here, so I'm gonna check it out in here. But since Dave is pulling it up on D&D Beyond, we might as well say that this is a sponsored video by the lovely people over at D&D Beyond.
Not only can you pick up Explorer's Guide to Wildemount over there or any of the other D&D content, you can also build your encounters, build your characters. There's a bunch of free stuff over there all the time, including articles and videos, as well as the SRD. There will be a link in the description. Go check out D&D Beyond. What do we got here? We've got a brand new book. We just got our copy. It just dropped yesterday. As of when we're filming it.
Right.
Which will probably be a little while when this actually gets up on the channel. But we wanted to break it down and look at the races for Wildemount and what our options are. So we have a bunch of reprints, but then we also have some new options as well.
We do. We're looking at chapter 4. It's page 161. Character options. We're looking at races. We've broken this list down of reprints by the source material in which they came from. There are a number of really cool sidebars. There's a lot of fun information that's in here, and there are some changes in some of those reprints as well. So the first up from Eberron Rising of the Last War, they've reprinted the Orc. And the Orc here, while mechanically is the same, it actually does have an age difference. So that is something to kind of take note, that apparently the Orcs in Wildemount have a longer lifespan, which is something that's pretty cool.
I was actually thinking, I was like, what changes are you talking about? I'm pretty sure all the reprints are just reprints. But yes, you're correct. The Orcs in Wildemount live like another 30 years longer than the Orcs in Eberron for some reason, which is different from the Orcs in Volo's Guide to Monsters.
So we definitely are seeing some, deviance from, or deviations from the Orcs, which I think is, fun to see that, New Worlds are presenting these things that we've been known to have for a long time as something different.
So now I guess we can break it down from, the reprints and where they're originally sourced and where you can originally find them. As we mentioned, we have the Orc, which is essentially mostly a reprint from Eberron Rising of the Last War.
So from the Elemental Evil Player's Companion, we have 3 races. We have the Genasi, the Aarakocra, as well as the Goliath.
Then we have Mordekainen's Tome of Foes, and we have a whopping one, and that is the Sea Elf.
We're also looking at, from the Turtle package, big surprise, the Turtle.
Now, Volo's Guide to Monsters gives us a whopping 4. We get the Azamar and the Furbolg.
Well, technically, it's actually, broken down a little bit more than that, because they're listing the Goblinkin as the goblinoid races. You've got Goblin, Bugbear, and Hobgoblin, but they also have in there as the Kenku as well. But for both of those, there are some pretty cool sidebars. The Goblinkin goes into significant detail about the Curse of Bane, and that, you can remove this curse through several different ways, or have been born without it, or had gone without it. And then the Kenku sidebar talks about role-playing a Kenku, and that, there are ways to just say what you're doing to not, basically become irksome at the table, considering the fact that Kenku don't normally speak and that they mimic other sounds that they've heard.
Now, worth mentioning with, even though all those are reprinted, each one has its own section in the Wildemount book so that you can look and see how those races kind of interact and are portrayed in this particular world, in the Critical Role world, in Matt Mercer's campaign setting.
Absolutely. So now we're going to move on to the new races that are within the book. I've got it open here to the Pallid Elf, and it goes into your typical breakdown. Pallid Elves are mystical and insightful people with skin as pale as the surface of Exandria's largest moon. They emerged from the Pallid Grove this century and wander the world with childlike curiosity. So they get a bonus 1 to wisdom. They have advantage on investigation and wisdom insight checks because they're incisive sense. They have blessing of the Moonweaver. You know the light cantrip. When you reach 3rd level, you can cast a sleep spell once with this trait and regain the ability to do so when you finish a long rest. When you finish 5th level, you can cast the invisibility spell targeting only self once with this trait and regain the ability to do so again when you finish a long rest. Casting these spells with this trait doesn't require material components. Wisdom is your spellcasting ability for these spells.
So what I'm saying is we have another sweet elf choice when it comes to the monk. We've got that Dex Wisdom split. Also, they're going to get some cool spell casting. This is also going to make any kind of great Dex-based martial character, any divine caster like your druid or your cleric. You're going to have some really cool options that you can do with it. And no matter what you go with, you're going to have that extra spell casting in there as well.
Yeah, getting, sleep and invisibility, they have, specific times when those kind of spells are good. But, invisibility and monk go hand in hand, I would say.
Now, for the standpoint of this video, for what we're doing, we're just kind of looking at the mechanical aspects. We're not going to go into all the detail of all the lore and all the information that's in there. If you want to pick up the book, you can. If you want to play in Wildemount, absolutely go for it. Have a great time. Us as Nerdarchy, we never use any of that stuff. We kind of just cherry pick things for new mechanics that we like to put into our game. Therefore, that's how we kind of look at it as well.
Right. I'm a fan of Critical Role. I'm almost completely caught up on everything that's in. Probably by the time this goes up, I will be. So I love seeing some of the lore and information that has come out in the games, in the actual books, both Talladore and Wildemount. But when we are looking at this, we only play in our homebrew worlds. That's typically what we do. So as Dave says, reiterate, we're looking at the mechanical, choices so that, those who have that similar mindset or want to cherry pick as we do, you've got that capability.
So next up, the Halflings get their own sub-race, a new one. And that is Lotusden Halfling, long tied to the natural heart of the Lotusden Greenwood. These Halflings have adapted to live synergistically with the chaotic laws of the wilds. Ability score increases Wisdom, +1, Child of the Wood. You know the Druidcraft cantrip. When you reach 3rd level, you can cast the Entangle spell once with this trait and regain the ability to do so when you finish a long rest. When you reach 5th level, you can cast the Spike Growth spell once with this trait and you regain the ability to do so when you finish a long rest. Casting these spells with this trait doesn't require material opponents. Wisdom is your spellcasting ability for these spells. We also get Timberwalk. Ability checks made to track you have disadvantage, and you can move across difficult terrain made of non-magical plants and undergrowth without expending extra movement. So at a glance, I'm seeing these are very, very hippie-ish halflings with ties to nature. They would be great to weave into your homebrew campaign if you wanted a little bit more of the wild side in your halfling with this subrace. And again, they've got that perfect stat split for the monk, and then they're going to get those extra abilities on top of it. So I think they would make a really cool monk. But again, just like the elf, the class splits are going to be the same.
So I see this as a perfect race for anyone who wants to dabble in druid or wants to double down on the druidic powers.
Yeah, I mean, because definitely some of their abilities, you're going to have overlap. So as a ranger or a druid, they might not be as useful, especially that Timberwalk.
Right.
But, a fighter with these abilities would be really cool, or a rogue, or the monk like we talked about, or even like a nature cleric. So you would gain some good synergies. And if you wanted to be anything and play this, like an Oath of an Ancient's Paladin would be really thematic and kind of cool.
Yeah, especially if you decided you were looking to be like a Dexidin.
Yes, absolutely. So. Or, you could also go with the Dex-based Barbarian as well. It would be fun. We're getting out of the realm of optimal, but, we do that sometimes.
All right, so let's dive into the Dragonborn, and we have some Dragonborn variants that are here. The Ravenite was actually originally released in the Tal'Dorei book, but if you're only using Wizards of the Coast products, then you might not have actually seen that one, so they put it in here so they've got both variants together.
Well, it does something else too. Remember, D&D Beyond is not only a sponsor for Nerdarchy, but Critical Role as well. Critical Role was actually like one of the first sponsorships that D&D Beyond did. So by including it in this book and making it a Wizards thing, now both sub races can be found on D&D Beyond as well.
Right. Which is really cool. So we have the Drakenblood and the Ravenite. So the Drakenblood is Dragonborns possess long tails and a knack for social manipulation. They remember the days when they were once mighty conquerors. The Drakenblood uses the Dragonborn traits in the player's handbook with the following traits replacing the ability score increase and damage resistance traits. Your intelligence scores increases by 2 and your charisma score by 1. They get dark vision out to 60 feet. They also have a forceful presence. You can use your understanding of creative diplomacy or intimidation to guide a conversation in your favor. When you make a charisma, intimidation, or persuasion check, you can do so with advantage. Once you use this trait, you can't do so again until you finish a short or long rest. Ravenites have no tails and a hardy physique. They remember the days when they were slaves to the Drakenblood, as well as the days they overthrew their masters. A Ravenite uses the Dragonborn traits in the player's handbook with the following traits replacing the ability score increase and damage resistance. Your strength score increases by 2 and your con score by 1. You gain dark vision, again out to 60 feet, and you have a vengeful assault. When you take damage from a creature in a range of your weapon you are wielding, you can use your reaction to make an attack with that weapon against that creature. Once you use this trait, you can't do so until you finish a short or long rest. So I dig this. In our own games, we've basically given our Dragonborn dark vision because we feel, it's lacking and it doesn't make sense. We've given our Dragonborn players the ability to have a tail or not. Fits again with that draconic aspect. And here we have the clear split, which I think is, fun and amusing.
Vengeful assault. I find this really interesting because they can use their reaction to attack a creature with a weapon that is within range. And it just says a weapon you're wielding. A longbow has a range of 600 feet.
Yes.
So technically, anybody hits you, you basically can attack them back as long as you have a weapon on hand.
That is how I read that as well.
Which is unique and interesting because generally when you see abilities like these, they almost always are melee based. Oh. And in this case, it's not. So I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. We're losing our resistance, but, we get some cool abilities. I like the really social Drakenblood variant as well, intelligence and charisma. So now you can have, if you wanted to be a Dragonborn wizard, you can, and you can have the optimal skill modifiers, or not skill modifiers, but optimal ability modifiers that you would want for that. And, they have that social aspect of it. Forceful presence really speaks to dragons, and dragons tend to be cults of personalities in and of themselves. So I really like that. And also, it's worth pointing out the art for these two different Dragonborn are really cool as well.
Yeah. So I really dig what the team has done to put together these two variants. And I'm happy to see that's now an official, product. You can play a Dragonborn that is different than the underpowered Dragonborn of the Player's Handbook.
Now your options, for playing a Dragonborn are going to be Wizard, Sorcerer, Warlock, Paladin, Barbarian, Fighter, where you have more optimal stat splits that you can now kind of like choose and pick, where before with that strength and charisma based, it was very, very limited, and most of your choices is that strength wasn't going to help you. Next up, we have something that is very unique, and you can't even pick this one. Your DM has to agree to allow you to do this. It may also be a way, if you have a character die, to bring them back and play them, and that is the Hollow One. The eastern coast of Zoras, known to the Kryn as Blightshore, is a land scarred by evil magic. Among the creations of that foul place are Hollow Ones, beings whose souls have left for the afterlife, yet whose bodies still retain a fragment of their former selves. The magic that sustains a Hollow One is a mystery. Most Hollow Ones are reborn after dying in the Blightshore, suggesting that the spell-scarred nature of the land brought them back for an unknown purpose. Yet some beings find that days after they died, they awaken, clutching to life, with only a terrible emptiness inside to remind them of their death. In the Blightshore, Hollow Ones are seen as people like any other. They seem strange, but their adventurous and hardy folk of the Blightshore are used to making allies with strange creatures. Elsewhere, Hollow Ones are indistinguishable from living creatures save for the faint stench of necromancy that lingers about them. The transition from life to becoming a Hollow One affects different people to different degrees. Some let their anger and regret consume them. Others use their second chance to become a brighter force in the world. However, all Hollow Ones are marked by their new existence. Feelings of unease, dread, or sadness cling to them like tattered rags of their past life. And then it goes on to talk about supernatural gift. Hollow One, it refers to the DMG Chapter 7 supernatural gifts. And this goes on to basically say, you don't pick this. Your DM bestows it upon you, or it allows you to choose it. And basically it has racial feats that just kind of, not racial feats, but racial features that get bolted on to other character races.
So if you were to play a Hollow One, you would first make your character, and then the abilities that you get for being a Hollow One are put on top of whatever race you were originally.
And it starts off with ageless, you don't age, and the effects that would cause you to age don't work on you. Cling to life. When you make a death saving throw and roll 16 or higher, you regain 1 hit point. Super cool and helpful. Revenants, you retain a certain type, yet you register as undead to spells and other effects that detect the presence of undead creature type. So that might mess with people and make some interesting role-playing situations come up. Unsettling presence. As an action, you can unsettle a creature you can see within 15 feet of you. The target has disadvantage on the next saving throw it makes within the next minute. Constructs, undead, and creatures that can't be frightened are immune to this feature. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest. So you're scary.
You're scary, you're spooky, however you want to look at it. You can unsettle folks. All in all, I'm really digging, the amount of stuff that is, jam-packed into this, racial section. All the extra lore for the campaign-specific races, all of the extra stuff to, be able to say, hey, you want to play that race that wasn't an official WotC before? Now it is,
So, yeah, I have mixed feelings about all the reprints. Part of me is like, well, if you're a player and you're new to the hobby and you just really want to play Critical Role, maybe you even just came into the hobby because of Critical Role and that's all you want. So now all you need is this book and the Player's Handbook. You don't need any of those extra books. Now, I understand, like, if you're a hardcore D&D player and you've been playing since the beginning of 5e and you have all the books, you're getting a bunch of duplicate content. As far as the stats, but you're also going to get the lore and things like that are going to be specific to this world.
And that's the thing that, to me, that's more than acceptable. I look at, okay, well, this is how this race plays in this world. This is how, this is different from elsewhere. So those few pages of extra printings, I see the massive amount of benefits as opposed to seeing any drawback there.
Yeah, it makes it easier. Like if you're playing Wildemount, you can just basically have that one book with you plus your PHB, and you don't have to carry a stack in order to cover everything because it's there. It's kind of convenient. So all in all, I like it. I like these choices for the races. I like that we have some more mechanical options that we can incorporate into our games. We kind of play a potpourri style game where we throw everything in and just mix it all together. So, for us personally, it works really well.
And I will say one extra caveat about the reprint is the Turtle package was digital only, and that's now, in an actual hardcover book. So to me, that's a win-win.
Yep, you're not wrong there. So if you enjoyed listening to us talk about this new book, there's other new books that we've talked about in the past, like Eberron, Rising of the Last War. Check it out up here in the card.
If you're looking to help out Nerdarchy and get cool material for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons at the same time, you can always support us on Patreon.
That's right. We create new material every month for players and DMs alike. But that's not all.
We also do weekly hangouts with our patrons. Our patrons are automatically entered into our monthly giveaway and more.
So until next time, stay nerdy.